Hello, I'm so excited to be live for my first time ever. And I am here to break down part of a dream that I had last night. And this dream has to do with the masculine and the feminine. And this is where the breakdown happens. I'm not going to tell you about the dream just yet. I'm going to break down some concepts about the dream that are relevant. So, a while back, I had shared that a slow and sensual yoga practice increases your magnetism. So, I'm going to break that down, and hopefully we will have time to get into the details of the dream. The dream is very short and sweet. So this is the concept I'm going to start with, and it is articulation. And I am a doctor of physical therapy that specializes in pelvic health and women's health and feminine wellness. So this will circle back around to the pelvis. Articulation, the way that you can speak in a way that is articulate, where you can emphasize certain things that you say. The way you move, you can also articulate. And that articulation happens at the level of your joints. A joint is where a bone meets a bone. And movement that is very specific to that place is called articulation. And a slow and sensual yoga practice, what it does is it gives you the time to build awareness around your mobility. Mobility is the capacity for your joints to move. And so when we are stiff and we are stuck and tense and tight, we will struggle to articulate our movements. And that just simply means that the expression of movement where the bone meets the bone at the joint is not as solid, it's not as clean. And I oftentimes give the analogy that it is like speaking and slurring your words. So if you are slurring your speech is not as coherent. In the same way that when you are unable to articulate movements at your joints, your expression of movement is diluted and your capacity to express yourself with your movement and your body becomes limited. So, by having a yoga practice or any movement practice, really a yoga practice, a Pilates practice, so on and so forth, a corrective exercise practice, therapeutic exercise practice, but where there is some sort of flow and some sort of sequence and attention to detail on creating relaxation and expansion of your range of motion and your movement capacity. And it's not all, articulation is not all about having the range of motion. Why I was a little bit more specific about having a slow and sensual yoga practice is because just stretching is only half the equation to being able to articulate well. So the other half of the equation is that you develop stability around the range of motion that you have. So the more capable you are of expressing range of motion and then stabilizing said range of motion, that's when your capacity to articulate through your movements becomes really sophisticated. And That is because with your range of motion, you'll have larger and larger capacities for movement, and then the more that you can stabilize, the more that you will really be able to control and go slow and speed up and pump the brakes on what you're doing. So what does this have to do with my dream? I had this really fascinating dream where it was revealed that oftentimes why women are in pain, or where there is struggle with the modern day woman, is in her inability to articulate around the masculine. This has a lot of metaphysical principles, so I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. But basically, if there is a body part that does not have the capacity to articulate, it oftentimes creates what's biomechanically called a stress riser. A stress riser is when a material of strength meets up with a material of weakness. And in the body, that is just one area of the body that is demonstrating capacity for strength and another area that is not. And this can also be an area where there's mobility and an area where there's not mobility. So that stress riser just means that the forces increase and are not very well attenuated at that spot. So if you put pressure up against that area where there is capacity for movement that's right up against an area where there's not the same capacity, there's not a gradient there, you can have pain. And so, the masculine penetrates. That is one feature of the masculine. And so the feminine in that storyline needs to be able to receive and articulate around the masculine. And so there's just a lot of fun metaphysical implications for the inability to yield, the inability to articulate, the inability to conform around. And so that is how this fascinating dream comes back to the share that I shared recently about how a slow and sensual yoga practice increases your magnetism, and kind of some explanation around how that is. And if you would like to increase your capacity for articulation, I already shared how you can take up a yoga practice. It's not all about stretching. It is also about stabilizing and strengthening. And where you have some of the most capacity in your body for articulation is in your spine and in your feet. So in order to reduce pain and stress risers around the pelvis, and in order to overcome any pelvic pain one may be having, your capacity to articulate really well around your spine is important. And a often forgotten part of improving pelvic health is improving the mobility and the stability and the strength and the capacity of your feet. So that is bringing it all together. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I hope to talk to you guys very soon.